As a parent, are you always looking for the next great book for your kids to read? Like finding a really good book for children, especially in that sort of, I'm going to say 9 to 12, 9 to 14 age range is really, really tricky. And today on the Happy Families podcast, I'm having a chat with an author, Sam Summers, who has written a brand new book that my 12-year-old loved and wants to know when the next one's coming out already. I told her these things do take time, but she cannot wait for the next one. Sam Summers is the author of a brand new book that kids in that age range are just going to love. It's called The Lost Defenders. I'm going to talk to Sam about how she wrote the book, why she wrote the book, who it's for, and why your kids want it, plus a whole lot more. It's coming up in just a sec on the Happy Families podcast. Hello and welcome to the Happy Families podcast, where you get real parenting solutions every single day. This is Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. Talking a lot about books lately on the pod. My one comes out in just a week, but I'm going to allow myself to be overshadowed because like buying books for kids, it's one of those things where I'm constantly cringing. I don't want them to get stuff that's older than them. Sometimes the kids get out over their skis. They come across content that's not quite right for them. And somewhere around that 10 to 12 age group, as the kids are growing up, they're starting to want to expand their horizons, read really great stuff. But as parents, we're trying to say, oh, let's just keep it just right for you. It can be really tricky to find the right books. Sam Summers is an author, speaker, and coach for working mothers. Sam spent 20 years in the corporate marketing world while raising her son as a single mum for almost 5 years. She now helps women move beyond survival mode and build lives and careers that feel meaningful and sustainable. We're going to talk about that in just a sec. But first up, Sam is also the author of the middle grade fantasy adventure, The Lost Defenders. I feel like JR is our producer on the pod. JR, I need you to help me with this. I'm going to do that again because it feels like it needs something big. Here we go. The Lost Defenders. I love the way you do that, JR. Thank you. Published by Penguin Random House Australia, the series explores bravery and belonging and the power of being different. Sam's originally from the UK. She's on the northern beaches of Sydney with a hubby and 2 kids. Sam, thanks for being on the pod. First things first, my daughter loved the book. How does that feel like as an author when someone says, love the book, or my kids love the book? Oh my goodness, well done.
Hi. When you told me that, I literally feel like I'm smiling from ear to ear. I'm actually struggling to just form a coherent sentence now. It's wonderful. It's the dream when someone says that they love it, particularly a kid, because I wrote it for kids.
And kids are like the toughest critics, right? If you can't get them by page 1, page 2, page 3, it's all over. Yeah. She read the whole book in a night, wouldn't go to sleep.
Oh my goodness.
We've got this thing. We know that she's got a torch in her room. We know that she stays up under the blankets reading. We don't get her in trouble for it. We just pretend to. And she read your book in a night. Tell me, when you're trying to write for kids that age, how do you get the story right? Like, how do you create something that will capture their attention and hold them? Because if you go too young, you end up writing those fairy books or Enid Blyton sort of stuff. If you go too old, you sort of end up getting a little bit edgy, a little bit racy, starting to have to, push into a different area. How do you get this just right, that sweet spot for kids in those middle childhood years?
It's an interesting one, actually, because before I wrote The Lost Defenders, I hadn't written for children before. I've written for adults, I've written for young adults, and it, often when you're writing for an older generation, my writing anyway, I think tapped into sort of, the angst that we all feel and the sort of, potentially sort of the pain that we feel going through certain things. So it was really different writing for that sort of 8 to 12-year-olds, and it was wonderful. I guess I first decided to write something. My son was 8, and so I knew it had to be something that he would like. And I think as soon as I started writing, I realised that actually I get to really tap into a part of our lives where everything's about discovery. And yes, kids do go through learning and some struggles, but it's all part of that discovery and growing, and having my son to sort of look at what he was reading, I guess, and what he enjoyed. He was obsessed with monsters back then, so that helped me. But it's a hard balance to strike, and there was definitely parts, I'm not going to lie, there was definitely parts where my editor, thank you editor, sort of said, this might be a little bit too much for for 8 to 12-year-olds. So it helps to have other eyes on as well.
Yeah. When your son was reading it, was he your number one fan, number one critic? Was he just like, meh, mum's writing a book? How much did you utilize him, his friends? Like, when I write a book, I get about 10 people around me, and I just get them. They hate me by the end of it. They never want to talk to me again. I'm like, read this now. What about this? I've edited it. Does this sound better? Like, is that what you kind of did, or do you keep it all very much to yourself till the product's done?
I think my poor husband had to listen to that a lot. What do you think of this? And read this chapter that I've just written. And he'd go, oh, yeah, it's good. And I'd be like, good? What else?
It's so helpful.
I need more than that. What's it making you feel? What's it making you think? So I think he was a bit fed up. My son was my first reader of the finished first draft, and he loved it. My son loved reading, so he was pretty excited. So I was very lucky to have someone like him really enthusiastic about reading it. And then thereafter, as you say, I actually got about 10 of his friends to be my sort of beta team. So they all read it too. And that sort of the feedback I got from them helped me adjust some bits, but it also gave me the confidence, I guess, to go and try and get a publisher. So they loved it. So yeah, it was good.
I would love to turn this into like a books podcast. I'm just massively into books. You can't see with the screen just here, but my bookshelf is mounted on the wall above my desk, and we have thousands and thousands of books in our home. Here's a question for you though that I've often thought I'd love to write some fiction. I'd love to write a novel. I'd love to write something. Never in my life have I thought I should write something for kids. What made you go writing for kids, that sort of 8 to 13 age group? What made you think that would be just the most awesome idea ever?
Well, it was definitely my son. So he was devouring books at the time, and we've always read together, me and him. I think part and parcel of sort of raising him by myself for a long time and having to work full time. We always read every evening together. That was like our little anchor, like reading before bed. So we read a lot of books together. And when he was around 8, we still read together sometimes, but mainly similarly to your daughter, he would be reading them on his own, with his torch in his room. And so I was watching him devour these books by amazing writers. And was I a bit jealous? Was I a bit sort of, I don't know, but I was just like, I wonder if I can write something that he would be that engaged with and that he would love that much. And so that's kind of what inspired me to try. But actually, once I started, it was like a light went on inside me, and I felt like, gosh, this is what I was supposed to be doing. So yeah, it just made sense.
Give us the 30-second synopsis. What is The Lost Defenders for any parent who's listened to the conversation so far and thought, oh my goodness, I just want my kids to read. This could be the answer.
So The Lost Defenders is really fast-paced. It's about a boy called Jace Tanner who can see monsters that no one else can. Obviously, that doesn't. There's nothing that any kid wants to be able to do because it gets him in all sorts of trouble. However, he is about to find out that he is not the only one, and the real reason that he can see monsters is because he's descended from an ancient line of monster hunters. So it's really fast-paced. It's exciting. Him and some others who are like him are in a race against time to basically thwart an evil monster plan.
It sounds intriguing, and I can understand why my daughter loved it so much. After the break, Sam, we're going to have a chat about the coaching that you do, the work that you do with working mums who are just thinking, oh my goodness, there is too much going on. I'm not content. I'm frustrated. It's all too hard. We're going to have a chat about that and how you ended up in that situation next on the Happy Families podcast. We're back. This is the Happy Families podcast, speaking with Sam Summers, author, speaker, coach for working mothers. Sam, a couple of times you've alluded to the fact that you're a single mum. You're married now. I was going to say, when I look at your bio and all the stuff that you've done, there's kind of this situation where you're a published author, writing children's books. You've got this great coaching business. You've had a wonderful corporate life doing marketing. It just sounds like everything has gone so smoothly, but you've alluded a couple of times you've been a single mum for a whole lot of time. Would you say that it has been linear? Has it been a nice cushy armchair ride to get to the point where you're in a position where you can now write and coach and speak and those kinds of things?
No. No is the simple answer to that. It hasn't been linear at all, and it definitely hasn't been straightforward. I'm obviously, as you can hear, I'm from England, and I came to Australia about 16 years ago and really loved it here. it's just such a wonderful lifestyle. I feel very, very lucky. But I had a little boy, and unfortunately that didn't work out. And when he was 1, I found myself a single mum with in an apartment in Sydney with no furniture and no job, actually, because I hadn't been at my job long enough to even get maternity leave when I was pregnant with him. So thankfully, the industry that I worked in and just the fact that, I had a good reputation in that industry allowed me to quite easily get another job. But yes, it was a terrifying time because it was just me and him. And I remember sitting on my lounge floor because I didn't have a couch at the time, and just sort of thinking, yeah, gosh, this is an interesting one. This could go either way here. It could have been really difficult, but I don't know, we made it work, me and him, and it was actually, I look back on some of that time of my life really, really fondly. It was awesome. And so it was hard, but I've always found that writing has helped me to sort of ground myself in who I am, which was a really big sort of important thing, I think, in my joy and my happiness while things were quite difficult. So does that make sense?
Yeah, and I feel like I'm shortchanging the entire story by fast forwarding through to now. But after pulling it together and making things work, you're now coaching working mums. What's the most common thing that mums come to you for? If they say, Sam, I need a guide, I need a mentor, I need a coach, I need somebody to help me through this period right now. What's the number one thing on the list?
Honestly, the number one thing that I get is feeling stuck. So feeling like we often do as mums, and it's quite natural to go into survival mode after we have children. And not necessarily after we have children, but when we go back to work after having children, I think is the key difference. I mean, we're going through a change that no one can ever really prepare you for. And so we go into survival mode just trying to make it all work. And then I think the biggest thing that happens is that we don't manage to sort of press pause and get ourselves off of that hamster wheel, I guess. And so I think a lot of women feel stuck, that they don't have any time for themselves, and often that sort of loss of identity, I think, in the chaos. And so that's kind of where I tend to help women the most, is sort of creating a bit of a strategy out of that chaos.
I often argue that there's no such thing as balance. Like there's too many balls in the air and you're running around chasing all of them. And yes, some of them are going to drop. You just need to make sure you don't drop the ones that will break. But you're talking about balancing motherhood and corporate life and chasing goals, or maybe even just trying to reestablish and reassert a sense of identity. What are the top 2 or 3 things that you usually seem to come back to again and again and again that seem to be universally valued by the people who come to you for their coaching?
It is. I completely agree with you about balance, by the way. I think it's a bit of a misnomer. I actually think it's quite a toxic term that gets thrown around because it actually sort of contributes to this constant feeling of failure that I think we have as parents, is that we can never achieve this sort of optimal balance. And I think sort of reframing what balance should mean to everyone is probably the first place to start. And, I think I read somewhere once that a sort of life harmony is probably a better way of describing it. And sort of some weeks and some months work is going to require a lot of you, and that's okay if that is in line with your values and what it is that you're guiding towards. And so put the idea of 50-50 or equal balance out the window and you're already on a front foot, really, because trying to chase that elusive balance is always going to be difficult. For me, when I was a single mum, and like I said, I was faced with this kind of decision, and this pivotal moment for me was just thinking, okay, I remember it vividly. I need to provide. I need to be able to provide for us, but I also want my son to look back on his childhood one day and say it was happy, and that his mum was happy. And that was a really, really big driving force for me. And I often think that what we forget as parents, and what the working mums who are just working so hard to make sure that everything works in their family and everyone's happy, is that they forget about themselves. But actually, what we want is for our children to see us happy, because then they are going to emulate that one day as adults. That's what I think anyway. So I think when we think self-care is selfish, or doing things for ourselves is sort of a selfish act, it's actually the opposite, because I always ask my clients, what do you want your daughter or your son to grow up thinking is adulthood and family life? Do you want them to think it's complete self-sacrifice? Do you want them to have to sacrifice every part of themselves to make that work? Or do you want them to genuinely follow their dreams and be happy? And I think we all know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm just taking my head out from underneath the pillow that I've hidden it under as I've listened to you say that, because sometimes it feels so heavy, like there's so much to do. And there is still sacrifice that has to be made. I love this conversation. I'm fascinated by it. I wish we had an hour to unpack it all. I'd love to keep on going deeper. But Sam, it's been a delight to talk to you. Sam Summers is an author, speaker, and coach for working mothers, and the author of the brand new children's book, The Lost Defenders. We'll link both to Sam's website so that you can find out about her coaching, and also we will link to The Lost Defenders in case you want to grab it for your kids, because it's always nice to have a great book for the kids to read. Sam, thank you so much for being generous with your time and sharing today. It's great to have you on. My daughter loved your book, and that's really why I wanted to chat with you.
Well, thank you for having me. It was awesome.
The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Mim Hammonds provides our admin and other support. And if you'd like more information about the stuff we've talked about today, check the show notes for the pod. Otherwise, to make your family happier, you'll find everything you need at happyfamilies.com.au.